We're going to make some sauce on glaze or custard. Does anybody ever make the sauce custard or whatever? Well, we can say this for scrambled eggs. Right. There it is. No procedure.
They've been doing it for years, they learned it from teenagers. It's like you and your all the stuff that you've got, you know, you use all the stuff in the garage.
Let me see. That's a litre, which is a pint and 3/4. So I would use 6 egg yolks for every pint of milk. Is approximately what I would do. If you're using cream, you'll have a thicker custard. I'm using full fat milk and a wee dash of cream, sort of thing. All right, so that's a pint and 3/4. So that's 9 egg yolks for that. I make it.
Those are your organic eggs. Those are your Ballykinler eggs.
These are the Ballykinler eggs. I'll tell you what, make it 10 egg yolks if you consider. So you can make it with all cream, it's lovely, it's really good. Just mix it around. We got that right. Yes. So if you have vanilla pods, you can scrape them out, scrape the seeds out, you see them doing it all the time, put them in there. Or if you're a pauper like me, and stingy, you use vanilla extract. Vanilla extract.
And then there's the paste, you can buy the paste.
You can buy the paste. I can never see it these days.
I've got it at home, yeah.
I had it years ago.
I think I got it in.
To be honest, I've got pods as well. There's a capful for each pint, so it's a bit. So the extract and the essence are totally different. The essence is not really vanilla. Whereas the extract.
Lakeland have got it as well.
Yes, the Madagascar.
Yes, the Madagascar one.
Is the one you want.
Yeah. The thing I found difficult to get actually was almond essence or almond extract. I got some in Lakeland there. I find it difficult to get.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
I couldn't get any Astas, couldn't get any.
Depends, you can be lucky and.
Yeah, but I got some anyway from Lakeland.
So I just want to bring the milk up to sort of steaming method. That's good. Might want to turn it off. Okay. So we'll let it come up. That's all right. And the sugar is up to you. You can, you know, I'll show you what I do. I would add a tablespoon for every pint. You really don't need it that sweet. So I would do, what we're doing, roughly 2 pints, so there's 1. There's 2. That's what I would do. If you've got a really sweet tooth, add some more, but you really don't need it that sweet. Is that caster sugar? Just caster sugar, yes. So you mix them really well together. Now, Teresa's talking about scrambled eggs, and this can happen. So, what you need to do is give yourself a little bit of insurance that that doesn't happen. And the thing to do with that is
This is good.
well, no, a little bit of corn flour.
Yeah.
A pinch of custard powder will do the same thing. Just a pinch. So, Because it's the introduction of starch to this, just a little bit, will stop your eggs from curdling. Will stop your eggs from curdling. Have you ever made pastry cream, or what do they call it? Creme pat, they call it on whatever, the bake-off. But if you ever make that, what you do is you do exactly what I'm doing here. Same ratio. You add quite a lot more plain flour to this, and then you add the milk to this, pour it all back in, and you boil it. The eggs don't split because the flour is in there. The starch will stop it boiling. It will stop it splitting. You still have to be a bit careful because we've only got a little bit in here, because we don't want people to think our custard came out of a packet. They want them to think that it's really 99% egg sort of thing. Right, that's fine. Just hang on to that. Oh, nearly there. Might be all there, I think. Just going to have a look at this. Think we can pop it a little bit. Right, so the milk is now steaming. It's hot. Now if we pour that onto there, obviously there's a risk of it will scramble, even though we've added the corn flour. So you just want to add a little bit of milk onto here, just a little bit, and whisk at the same time.
But like mayonnaise.
Well, not necessarily, because you're just introducing the egg to the heat, and now you're going to pour it back in there.
Okay, gotcha.
And get it back on the heat. And then you stir, ideally just until it hits the back of the wooden spoon. But you want a nice little heat. This is not one to, to try and rush, because you'll get into trouble if you do. So, pour that all back in there, huh? Okay, back on heat, and just keep it moving nice and steady, but make sure you do the sides of the pan, because that's where it sets first. And if you don't do the sides of the pan, you tend to get sort of cooked egg around the sides and a custard there. So it'll take a hold. But because the milk is nearly okay. So here's where we are now. There's no real clear definitive line down the back of the spoon. So we're just hanging a little bit. You can use a whisk if you want, but you tend to froth things up when you use a whisk. And it's hard to tell. Sometimes you can judge it by when the bubbles subside. Some people would say that that's when your custard is ready. I've just always felt happier with a wooden spoon. And not to say even then you can curdle it. But if you do curdle it, heaven forbid you do, the thing to do is to pour it through a sieve, bring it back up, all the residual curdle will stay in the sieve, bring it back up and thicken it with a wee bit of custard, and you've saved the day. Okay, so I'm now going to break the rules and turn the heat on, just to do it a wee bit faster. So this is a base for an ice cream as well. If you wanted to make ice cream, you're essentially making custard. You can use the carton of custard that you buy in a shop. The better the quality, the better the ice cream. But let's just have a look at that. Not yet. So if you wanted, for instance, coffee ice cream, add your favourite coffee to the custard, and sweeten it accordingly. Things always take, you need to add more sugar if you're going to serve it cold. If you know what I mean, it will take more sugar. It's like pasties and salty things as well. If you're going to serve something cold, you need to season it better, because your palate isn't as receptive as if it's warm. If that makes any sense. Nearly there.
Just pop it into a container and then take it out of the freezer and just stir it.
The ice cream?
Yeah.
And you can get an ice cream churner for 15 quid, and certainly Lidl's or eggplant or something like that. You can do it in that. You can certainly do that. But I mean, if you want just a good simple vanilla ice cream, this is the base for it. But use cream instead of milk. There you go, over there. Look, there's your line. All right. Can you see that? Off the heat. So the cooking is still cooking. So you want to stop it cooking. Ideally, you'd have a bowl of iced water. You just pour that into. I just got a pretty simple looking stainless steel jug. But that will stop it cooking. Another jug. There's another one there. Now, of course, you're saying, but that doesn't look thick like custard. And in fact, this little bit at the bottom here has stayed on the heat a little bit too long, so that is just starting to curdle. But that, you get that, that's what you get. As it cools, the custard will thicken. See that? Sticking in already? So, that's how you make custard. So if you wanted to make ice cream, substitute the milk for cream, double cream. And then whenever you've made the custard, you need to pour, obviously, if you want chocolate, add cocoa powder or melted chocolate to it as well. If you want coffee, add coffee powder, orange zest, anything you want. Then you need to chill your custard in the fridge, ideally overnight to get it ice cold, because you can't churn something if it's warm. And then the next day, either stick it in the ice cream machine, or as Denise says, if you haven't got one, stick it in the Tupperware tub. Stick it in the freezer with the lid on for about an hour, take it out, bring the outside, which is already starting to set, into the middle, just turn it around with a fork, stick it back in the freezer for another hour. After that, give it another wee whisk, another hour, until it's nice and on together like an ice cream. So, we made fig leaf ice cream this year. We have a fig tree outside on a south facing wall. So in fact we've got two. But they're not in the soil again, they're planters about not far off the size of this table, not just as deep but longer. And well, we get the thought of figs. You get little figs like that, and then you get one that size, and then the birds have it, or something like that, you know. So, but what you can do with fig leaves, you know what I'm talking about, fig leaves. They have the most fantastic flavour. They taste almost like coconut. And you just, for that much custard, you would use 3 fig leaves, about that size, snip them up with a pair of scissors, toast them in a frying pan, infuse your cream before you turn it into a custard in the fig leaves. So in other words, put the fig leaves into the cream, bring it up to the boil, turn it off, let it sit with a lid on for 20 minutes to get the fig leaf free of it. And then you make a custard. You just strain that off, use the cream with the sugar, etc., and churn that. So I'll tell you, it's one of the nicest ice creams. And also very, very trendy. Fig leaves, well, who would, for goodness sake, you know. But it's quite trendy now. In fact, I'm pretty sure, I think somebody, I don't know if you're watching MasterChef, the professionals, or whatever it is, there's someone. No, you know what I mean. I think it's on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday or something like that. I watched a bit of it. And I'm pretty sure somebody did a fig leaf something or other. So it's trendy now. It's just trendy. But of course we can. I would imagine whenever fig leaves grow and somebody says, what can you do with these? And I know exactly what you mean. I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. So the other thing we've been using as well is sea buckthorn. You ever use that stuff? You know, the orange stuff? Yes. I haven't seen the ice. I know you can get the ice cream. I haven't made that. Yeah, sea buckthorn ice cream. I made the posset a while back. You know, like a lemon posset, which is just, it's like set cream. It's much easier than a panna cotta or anything like that. You just cook buckthorn in a tiny little bit of water and sugar, and then you puree it, so you've got a syrup, thick puree. Buckthorns, you get them down in Murlough, you get them across along the beach. Just towards the end of the season now, they're bright orange. They're so high in vitamin C. Yeah. It's very, very high in vitamin C, and it's one of those it's one of those original foods that people would have eaten on the coast, the first settlers. Right.